Day 1. Hank, a seasoned lumberjack with calloused hands and a heart as sturdy as oak, arrived at the lumber mill just as the dawn broke. The smell of fresh pine and the rhythmic hum of saws were familiar comforts. But that day something felt off. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As he swung his axe, he caught a glimpse of something tall and thin in the woods. He shrugged it off as a trick of the light. Day 2. The unease grew. Hank noticed subtle changes in his surroundings. The birds didn't sing, and the usual chatter of squirrels had fallen silent. That night, he dreamt of a gaunt figure in a jester's outfit, its eyes glowing malevolently. He woke up in a cold sweat, heart pounding. Day 3. Hank confided in his friend Joe about the strange feeling. Joe laughed it off, saying Hank was working too hard, but the laughter didn't dispel the sense of dread. As the day wore on, Hank saw the figure again, closer this time. The jester's smile seemed to stretch wider, and the scratching sound in his head began, faint but persistent. Day 4. The scratching grew louder, like nails on a chalkboard inside his skull. Hank tried to focus on his work, but the figure was everywhere, in the corner of his vision reflected in the polished surface of his axe, always watching. That night, the dreams intensified. The jester's limbs moved like those of an insect, chittering and scraping. Day 5. Paranoia set in. Hank stopped eating, stopped sleeping. He barricaded himself in his cabin, but the jester's face appeared in every shadow. The scratching in his head became almost unbearable, a constant reminder that the creature was coming for him. His thoughts were consumed by the jester's eerie grin and those haunting eyes. Day 6. The jester's influence was undeniable. Hank could barely function. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the leaves outside sent him into a panic. He could feel the creature's presence growing stronger, the air around him growing colder. He knew it was only a matter of time. Day 7. Hank's world shattered. The jester appeared in his cabin, towering over him. Its insect-like limbs extended, wrapping around him with surprising strength. Hank screamed, but no one was there to hear. The world around him twisted and darkened, dragging him into a reality that felt like a warped imitation of his own. Alternate reality. Day 1. Hank stumbled through the cold, dark version of his world. It was familiar yet wrong, as if someone had tried to recreate it from memory and failed. The air was thick with dread, and the only sound was the ceaseless scratching in his head. The jester was never far behind, its form shifting, becoming more insect-like with each passing day. Alternate reality, Day 2 through 6. Hank was hunted relentlessly. He couldn't rest, couldn't escape. The jester's chittering laughter echoed through the twisted landscape, growing louder, closer. It was playing with him, savoring his fear. The once human-like figure was now a grotesque amalgamation of man and insect, in nightmare-given form. Alternate reality. Day 7. Hank's resolve crumbled. The jester found him, cornered him. It beckoned him closer with its repulsive appendages, and against his will, his body obeyed. He moved towards the creature, its eyes locking onto his. The scratching in his head reached a crescendo, and he felt as if something was clawing its way out of his brain. The pain was unbearable, a searing agony that consumed him. As Hank stood face to face with the jester, its grin stretched impossibly wide, the world went black. His last sensation was the feeling of those insect-like limbs wrapping around him, pulling him into an abyss where only the scratching remained. Hank was later found merged with a wall, deformed into a grotesque imitation of the jester, his head replaced with a strange insect, wearing Hank's face like a mask. This report was made via a death knell from SCP-Y-10, and thus ends this meeting on another detailed incident report. We at Site-Y-1 have a responsibility to know what we're up against. I hope you'll consider subscribing to stay updated on our incident reports. Knowledge is power, after all. You never know when you may come face to face with one of these yourself.